here we are.
Hello.
Yay.
So happy.
Like the fun part of this actually was talking to you before.
Don't tell anybody.
So I want to thank everybody for being here. And it always takes a little bit of time for people to get here and we're like ahead of them. So I'm going to let people sort of start coming in. Thank you so much for being here with me, Lisa. And I'm really excited about our conversation today because I think that, hold on, sorry. I'm getting feedback on my phone. Can anyone else hear that?
We have one viewer. It's you.
How do I mute it? I've never had this problem before. Okay, it's whatever. Okay.
Live TV. Woot woot.
Yeah, well, this means it's live. We're definitely live here. So yeah, I'll just turn this off altogether.
Or you might hear my husband vacuum shortly, so it's fine.
Well, while people are coming in, I hope they're saying hi. Are people saying hi?
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Yes, Lisa is an awesome guest.
I don't know who that is. It says LinkedIn user, but thank you for your kind words.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah. Alex Freund is going to be here to join in the conversation. Whether he's here yet or not, we're excited to see him come in. So Lisa, you and I have known each other for a while. I think you were like one of the first. Well, after I met Miriam and of that crew, you were like one of the first real people that I got the chance to meet in person. And you remember where we met, right?
It was a conference, and I think I still have the picture of like me, you, Miriam, and Michelle.
I know. We're going to do a reunion one of these days.
Yes.
So I think, and that's one of the things that I'm excited about as we come out of this pandemic a little bit more, is being able to get together with people face to face, because it's different. Like when you can know somebody, like prior to meeting people in person, we've had like chats and even video chats, but when you meet somebody in person, it's really different. It makes it more real.
No, and I loved when I came to Rochester for a conference and I reached out to you like, okay, this is crazy, but I'm here. Can I meet you? And we met, and you took a picture.
I remember we met.
Miriam did, and I still have that picture too.
Yes, I know. So that's like, and I wrote, so one of the other stories I tell people back in the day, like I wrote a book virtually with another author. Miriam and I went back and forth and wrote that book. We had never met in person. So I think that, we were sort of early adopters of some of the virtual technology and building relationships virtually. But now the whole world has caught up. And I think it's very cool. I think the pandemic has forced a lot of stuff on us. And, it's awful, horrible. I don't want to ever go through that again.
Yeah, every aspect, yeah.
We've done some cool things like the virtual stuff. And it's also sort of led us to this point, which sort of takes to me sort of segueing into what we're going to do. Like people are really more concerned today about their happiness and their mental well-being and their careers and how they're spending their time and energy than they've ever been before.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, it is definitely one of the few good things, right, that came out of this, is we all started to prioritize really what's important.
Yeah.
And it, forced people to make decisions. And, I mean, I think it's funny. People say like, oh, you must be so busy because of the Great Resignation. And we're busy. Everything's fine. But we normally work with executives. And frankly, the executive set has always had the ability to make job changes available to them because of quality of life, or they, want to work from home 1 day or 2 days a week. Like we've always worked with people like that for the last few years, even well before the pandemic. I think what makes the Great Resignation is everyone now realizes they can do that. And mid-level, staff level, everybody's realizing that life is more important than work. And doesn't mean that work isn't important or people don't want to be engaged by it or anything. Obviously, we all need to make a living, but it's life is finally more important than work, which amen.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And you wrote another article about that, or a post about that. You've commented about that too, about the whole work-life balance versus life-work balance, and how we all now have that the ability to make that kind of a decision.
Right. And I think it's awesome, right? I think it's really awesome that everybody sees it. It's really unfortunate that a pandemic is what kind of had to happen for all of us to realize it, but is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. So
when we're talking today, we're going to be the reason I I always wanted to have a chance to talk with you live, but one of the things that caught my attention, I want us to focus in on today, is that post that you wrote, and I'm going to share it here, right? That you had a background. This was your post. The post was that, I have a background as a recruiter, and one of the scariest, hardest things I ever did was to go be a recruiter in the financial realm on Wall Street, right?
Bullpen office in Wall Street. Yeah.
Right. That takes really tough skin, right? But you knew what you were getting into. You
I don't think I knew what I was getting into, to be honest. I think if I knew, I may not have done it. And if I'm really being truthful here.
Yeah. Well,
thankfully, I was.
You took that risk and
Yeah.
you made that jump, and you had to either swim or drown. You floundered around a lot.
Yeah.
And so in the video that you share, right, it's about how you found there were 3 things that you did that relate to job search, but 3 things that you found were helpful in dealing with sort of that, all of those emotions that you felt when you were in that position where it was really tough, right? And for those, recruiting is a tough business. A lot of people don't want to waste their time talking to a recruiter, right? They're happy in their job. So you had to find ways to make this not only profitable for yourself, but survive. So in this wonderful video, there are 3 main points, and I want to sort of give people a chance to sort of think about them and ask questions, because I think the 3 tips that you give are universal, whether it is dealing with rejection, that job seekers face with rejection, right? Or just that emotional stuff that happens to us while we're in job search. We lose self-confidence. We feel the world is against us. We don't think we're ever going to make it out of that deep, dark tunnel. Like all of that emotional stuff we carry with us during job search. And so your 3 tips work for rejection, but all of that other stuff too, don't you think?
I mean, I think so. I've labeled myself sort of an introvert that functions decently in an extroverted world, or, a recovering introvert. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Right. And what made me take that job, I was an internal recruiter at a recruiting firm. I was finding the candidates, and then being in a search firm, if you really don't own your own clients, companies with jobs, you're always at the mercy with your candidates of waiting for somebody else to get a job, to place your candidates. Whereas if you actually own some of the clients that have the jobs, recruiters are bringing candidates to you. So it's a little bit more stabilizing in your income when you have both candidates and clients. And at the time, I only had candidates. And I moved to a company where it was a small startup. It was a Boston-based company that opened up a New York office. So they needed clients. And I was like, I can do this. I can go get clients. I can get companies. And I don't think I really truly understood what it was, especially working in a startup office, no less. And everyone around me was like very gregarious and outgoing. And, I was like this sort of like quiet geek who didn't say much. And I intellectualized everything, right? Which is believe me, my brains are one of my assets, but some days it's not, right? And I can think, and I can complicate everything, and, think I'm smarter than everybody else when in actuality I'm not. So, and that was kind of happening when I was about 27, 28, taking this job. And I realized if I did not learn how to sell the recruiting services that I was doing, get jobs basically, then I was always going to be at the mercy of somebody else. And I would probably end up being frustrated because I would be waiting for people to see what I had as opposed to promoting myself. I don't know how the heck I got that epiphany. I mean, we don't have enough time here to go through the psychology of that, right? I mean, I've written about my dad struggling with interviews. I've written about, sort of like a blue collar upbringing, and I'm sure it's all rooted in that. But I somehow, and I'm grateful that happened, because I wasn't smart and said I should do this. It just sort of came to me, and I'm just glad I listened to that instinct. Yeah. And I do remember sitting there some days like petrified and mortified, and can't believe I'm, feeling like a used car salesman as I'm trying to call, trying to set up meetings with controllers and tax directors, and trying to get, jobs to work on, and pitch candidates to them that we had. And it was not easy. I mean, I did love it. I did come to love it, and I was good at it. And I think that's honestly why we're good with helping clients find work now and not and just beyond the documents. But it's I had to, because it was so emotionally difficult every day, and I felt different than everybody in that room every day in that bullpen, smiling and dialing every day. I had to come up with ways to make it palatable for myself. And I literally remember, like, I would take a pad of paper, like a 5x8 pad of paper, and I would write, like, dials, conversations, meetings, jobs I got in, and like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was the top, right? And I would write down every time I dialed the phone, I would have like the hashtags with the cross marks, and I would, because I could, and I was like, okay, and then I would over time notice a pattern. If I made X amount of dials, I'd probably get X amount of people on the phone, and then I could pitch, those people, and I'd probably have, X amount would say, yes, I'll see a meeting, and then of the, Y amount of meetings I set that week, Y minus 3 might happen. And then if I went to certain meetings every week, I'd probably get 1 or 2 jobs to work on. And I'd come up with metrics that basically kind of worked and came to fruition if I just picked up the phone that many times, right?
Yeah.
And so it became this formulaic approach, which to me removed a lot of the like, oh my God, I got to make this phone call again. Oh my God, this person's going to reject me. Oh my God, this guy's going to cancel the meeting every day. It's just like, oh, my job today is just to make, and the number came out to be like between 90 and 110 dials a day. And I didn't do it every day. Some days I made 50. I mean, admittedly, I'm not, but I at least knew my job
had a goal.
that much, and I basically have taken that philosophy as technology has changed. And I got to send a certain amount of emails a day. I got to send a certain amount of LinkedIn, emails a day, on Sales Navigator. I got to send a certain amount of messages a day, or I'm going to find experts on Twitter. I'm going to DM 25 people on Twitter today, not spammy. I mean, I look at their profile, I come up with something thoughtful, and, but
it's lead generation and nurturing relationships.
It's
just
everything. I'm going to comment X amount of times on Instagram, like whatever the technology is, this mindset could be adopted to it, right? Come up with a plan. And the key is I think about doing it, and then I put it on my calendar for like tomorrow or the next day or whatever day. So then when that day comes, I don't get up and think about all the things I have to do. I just get up and start emailing, and
it becomes a routine, a pattern.
And I don't have to think about it, right? I mean, people do that with social media posting. I see it all the time. They're like, I got to put the plan out. Because if I got to think about what I got to do that morning, it's like, oh, it's 100 pounds, right? Yeah. So, and I, have to get better about doing it ahead of time too. Sometimes I'm doing it that morning too, and it's really heavy. So this is what we try to teach, is what I have in this is what we teach. And it's simple, but it's hard, right? Like,
I think it's really hard because no one teaches us what the pattern, what the routine is for job search. We know when we go into a new job, we've got to learn the new routine of the job. We know what we have to do every minute of the day because it's pretty much blocked off for us. But when we get into a job search, what all the structure is gone. We'd have no idea what activities we're supposed to be doing. We think, and what feels good to us is applying for jobs online, right? Yeah. And so we can check that box, right? And then we feel good because we think that that's going to.
Well, it's so funny because I literally remember being in that bullpen when Monster was a big deal in like 1998, 2000, right? And everybody was like, oh my God, the job boards are going to kill the recruiting business. Like, and it was literally like concerns that came out about that, right? And there were agencies that went completely digital and like thinking that they were never going to have to make a cold call to get a job ever again. And it would just be this whole thing. And the reason they believed it is because you did submit a resume, you did get a bazillion calls in like 3 minutes at the time. And you did get a job because it was a hot market combined with this really easy technology that didn't have a lot of candidates on it. It was like, you did get a job in 2 minutes, with a very poor resume on the platform, right? Like, if you're a human being, got a pulse, you're in, right? Like, and I swear to God, I feel like even people who were not working or looking for a job during that period, I feel like some days we're all trying to make sure that we're getting back to that period of ease to click again, And I don't think that time is ever coming back ever again, because now it's prolifically widespread. There's so many people on them. The recruiters are overwhelmed with the searching for the people in them, and who's gaming the system, who's not gaming the system, who's gaming the system and they're not qualified, who's not gaming the system, but they're qualified, but now they can't get seen. And it's all the nonsense, right? So it comes back to just try to reach out to people and make relationships, and do it in such a way that you minimize the emotional impact on yourself when you don't hear back. One of the things, I know we only have a few more minutes, but some things to walk away with are, if you send out 20 emails or 20 in-mails, or you make 20 dials, right? Because the phone still actually works nowadays.
Yes, can we just say that again?
Say that again. The phone actually works. It's actually the thing that nobody uses anymore. So actually, when you call, you will actually be one of the few people that they are paying attention to, right? So
what's old is new again.
It can work, right? But with all that said, like, if you do 20, focus on the 5 that get back to you. Don't worry about the 15 that didn't, and then come up with a new list for the next time you go to do this. And then and then you keep focusing on who comes back to you. And, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't have dreams or keep going at a company that you want to get into that isn't getting back to you and that sort of thing. But if you brought up a line that I think I said in the video. We tend to put our happiness or our mental health, the quality of our mental health on things we can't control. We rest it on things we can't control, right? I'll be happy when they get back to me. I'll be happy when that offer comes in. When in actuality, we have no control over any of that. And we're basing our happiness or our contentness or our mental health stability on things like that. And it's easier said than done. I'm not qualified to talk about that today, right? But we can control. I made 100 dials today. I sent 30 emails today. I found 40 people that I'm going to reach out to. Today's Tuesday. I found 40 people that I'm going to reach out to on Thursday. Now I can feel good and I can control that.
Yes.
Right.
So yes. And I think that is, and I think there's some philosophy or something that says the reason we feel frustrated is because stuff is outside of our control, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole reason that people get frustrated with job search is because so much of the process they feel is outside of their control. But what I'm hearing you say, and where I'm clapping my hands, is that we have a lot more control over this than we were taking credit for, right? It is. And the first step was, so for those that are trying to follow this, step 1 is to have a plan and build a plan for what activities you're going to do and how you're going to go about your job search. The second thing, which is so important in dealing with rejection and dealing with the emotions of job search, is to know that you can only control what you can control.
Right.
And so when you think about that, I just want everybody to really, it's easy to make excuses. They're not getting back to me because my resume. They're not getting back to me because that might be true. What can you control? What can you control? And if people aren't getting back to you,
what do you know to be true, right?
Yes.
Like, don't, in absence of information, do not fill the blanks in with unconfirmed information, right? I mean,
it's got to be this.
It's the same concept in the ageism presentation I did with Andrew Seaman in December, which anybody wants to see the links on my profile, and you don't have to opt in for it. But and so this mindset can be applied to everything, right? It's in, oh, I'm not getting hired because I'm too young, I'm too old. Ageism can be everything, right? Any age. It's like, okay, have they told you that? No. And I'm not saying ageism doesn't exist, right? Don't hate the girl here, right? So it clearly exists, but like, you don't know that for certain. And you may also not be presenting yourself in the best way. You might not have the qualifications that they're looking for. You might have all the qualifications, but the person who submitted right after you or right before you might have better qualifications. Like, in absence of information, don't choose the reason that you have no evidence of and is going to make you mentally go in the toilet because you can't control it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, and believe me, I sound all like how easy that is. Believe me, there's some days I'm picking myself out of bed. I can't do that either. So I'm only saying this from experience, not from lecturing, I promise. But because I have a tendency to do that too. It's, which surround yourself with people that'll help you get out of that mental place. But
and we're transitioning into this other element, right? Which is the third point that you mentioned in your video.
So good about keeping us on track, Hannah.
Well, you did, because it's about the third point is leave the results to the universe.
We can only control the actions, right? The results are up to the universe. I tend to not be the most religious person, but I'm a universe person, right? Some people might call that God. Some people might call that something else. So, I mean, it's somebody, Barbara's asking, do you mind if I go to the question?
No, where is that?
How can you address how to getting rejected in favor of an internal candidate? So, I think that, right. So, I mean, it's a harder competition if there's internal. It means it's a good employer. They're promoting people internally, right? So I know that doesn't make it easier for your clients, being the job seekers, but it's, I think, about reframing and not taking it personally, right? So if the rejection is going to exist in this case, in any of these cases, right? It's always going to exist for all of our job seeking clients, for job seekers that are listening out there. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen. If you do have information that it isn't internal, right, then that's hard to compete with. And you're right to want to try to get into that company. And maybe you just then gear up and try it a different way, because clearly they're promoting people from within, and that's a good thing, right? So it's a bummer that they didn't choose you that day, but at least you have confirmation that you're going after the right employer, because they are promoting people from within. And it's not personal, right? It's not, we're not picking you. It's like, that's the thing, is to not, easier said than done again, but this is the gut check. Like, is this really about me being rejected, or is this, I'm not getting chosen because someone else was maybe more appropriately suited, or it's actually good news that somebody else, in terms of the context of somebody else getting chosen, because it means this is a company that promotes from within. And okay, I'm going to gear up. I'm going to make my game better and more tight the next time I go and approach this company, and because I know this is the evidence that I want to do this, so it's about, there's a lot of reframing, that I do in this brain, as well as with anybody that I talk to, whether they're, my client or not. I do it with my kids, it's a lot of reframing, and it's not dealing with the emotion, right? I'm not saying, oh, don't feel sad, just get back on there. I'm not saying that. Be sad, but the key is to not make the sadness start to spiral into things that we, one, have no evidence of as being the case, and two, it's stuff we have no control over. And then, if it is a reason that we can't control, like say it is ultimately ageism, or it is ultimately somebody's just better qualified, right? I can't control any of that. And that's a good reason and a bad reason why you can not get a job, right? Then I tend to do the whole, and it's definitely a coping mechanism, but I tend to do okay, then maybe the universe needs me to go somewhere else,
and there are lots of other jobs out there.
There's a lot of other jobs out there, there's small companies, not everything's a Fortune 5, not every opportunity that's amazing is at a Fortune 500 company. They are a fraction of the employers in this country. There are a lot more small and mid-sized businesses than there are Fortune 500 companies. There's only 500 of them, right? So Google how many businesses, employers exist in America, and then globally, obviously, because I know you have a global audience, and you'll see how many employers there are in America and globally, or whatever country you're in, and then take that number and compare it to 500. You have a lot more opportunity if you just open up to other employers, so there's a lot more ways to get hired.
I think, so I want to sort of, as we get closer to the end, can we talk a little bit more about sort of mental well-being and why that's so important? So yeah, rejection is part of that sort of ways that we act out, or things that trigger the mental non-well-being. But why is mental health so important to have good mental health, so important to job seekers? What have you seen? What do you know?
I mean, the times I've had to look for a job, and then as a business owner having to get up and market my business every day, right? I mean, if you're not mentally somewhat in the space, now you're never going to be 100% in the space. Maybe I'm just a skeptic, but that's just how I think. I'm never going to be 100% right in the space in my mind, at least in my mind. It's too hard. to try to do it and, be positive and be the solution and be the things when you're just feeling like the world is against you. And, it is sometimes a training exercise, right? It's, not only the health and the food and the exercise and but I think even like sending follow-up emails, like word it in such a way that maybe you don't expect a response, which sounds completely counterintuitive, right? But to say, I know I'm following up on the interview that I had last week. I know when you have information for me, you'll circle back with me. I'm simply emailing to stay on your radar and reiterate my interest. Like everybody needs one less to-do item on their list today, right? By sending that email, like, please get back to me once you have feedback. Now they're like, oh my God, you're another thing I got to do.
Right.
Whereas if you say, I know you're going to get back to me when you have information, I'm just staying on your radar, right?
Permission to not have to respond.
So low for that person. It's now easy for them to look like a hero by just emailing back going, you know what, thanks for your, and not everybody's going to email back, but it makes it easy to go, you know what, I don't have a lot of information for you, but thanks for the email. Or, hey, you know what, I'm glad you emailed back. The hiring manager's out for 2 weeks. I didn't know that. I'll keep you posted in 2 weeks. But when you say, get back to me with the information, you've set an expectation now that's a to-do item for that person that's already stressed out. And they didn't realize the hiring manager was going to be away for 2 weeks. So now they don't want to get back to you to say, oh, by the way, I was wrong. And the hiring manager's gone for 2 weeks. So they avoid it. Again, wrong, shouldn't happen. But you know what? We're dealing with human beings. So if you can do your activities in such a way that make it easier for the person that you're dealing with to get back to you and not be an item on the to-do list, it subliminally also sends a message that you're easy to work with.
Love all of those reasons.
And you're mentally preparing yourself that if they don't get back to you, you said that you're basically implying that you don't expect them to get back to you. So now you don't feel rejected, which is probably the most important part of that whole exercise, right? So are you doing activities that are setting yourself up to be rejected? Think about it and maybe phrase things differently. So then you're not putting yourself to be, oh, that one didn't get back to me. Oh, that one didn't get back to me. Oh, that one didn't get back to me. And then you feel like a schmuck by the end of the day. And who wants to go do it tomorrow? Yeah. So just stuff like that. It's all little stuff, but it really matters.
It does matter. And because I have worked with a lot of job seekers that for whatever reason have felt rejection and they're taking it personally and they're acting out on it. So they send those angry follow-up emails. I thought I would have heard from you. You told me we were going to get back in touch with you this week.
That's going to make them rush to work with you.
Right. So that doesn't work. We have to think about, leading with kindness. Even
and I'm laughing, but I know it's only because somebody's in pain. But at some point you have to laugh a little too. But yes, it's definitely not a laughable situation. But
no, it's not. But we have to find a little bit of humor in some of this.
Humor in it, and laugh at ourselves.
I always thought that they should make a reality show about job seekers. It would be cruel, but it would be really funny. It's sort of like The Office. But
I think there was a job search show one day. I feel like
there
was one. It just didn't really take off. But I think that might be your ticket, Hannah.
That's it.
Career Sherpa on, you can be the new Amazon Netflix thing.
Okay.
It was born here. You all saw it.
You were the first. We heard it here. So what excites you right now? I know, because I want to
you and your new show.
All right. You can have a starring role on it. You'll be the
I just think that, the internet and the access that literally everyone has at their fingertips, as overwhelming as all this stuff is, it's also like an amazing opportunity. I mean, never before have we had just all these people at our fingertips. And whether it's, and I know we're on LinkedIn, but I may mention other platforms, but between all these platforms that we have, in addition to LinkedIn, we literally can message almost anybody practically, nowadays, right? And so the access and the possibilities, I just think are mind-blowingly infinite. And so when people are like, I have nobody to talk to in my network, I'm like, okay, you're just not thinking hard enough. Let me show you. And so, and we just have, I literally remember in college, like going to the library and looking up the alumni binder and pulling it out. And that was like all I was going to reach out to that day was the people in that little binder, whereas now I can message almost anybody. You know what I mean? Like Ryan Reynolds is on LinkedIn and has the message open or something, like, I think, right? I mean, like, it's just crazy. Please don't everybody message him. But anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, everything is possible in my mind. And that's what kind of gets me out of sometimes the heavy days. And there's heavy days. I mean, we all have them, but there's just so much possibility that honestly makes me excited.
Here's the other thing that gets me excited, and when during our pre-conversation, like, we get ourselves stuck in a rut, right?
Yeah.
I can't get out of my own rut. I can't get out of my own head and out of my own way.
Right.
And so one of the things in just our brief conversation that we had before this opening, you opened up my eyes to a couple of things that I couldn't have thought of. So for all of those people that are feeling discouraged, that are feeling like they're more than what they're able to do, and they're capable of doing more than what they're able to do, partner up with somebody. Don't work at this alone, because I don't think that we don't do a job completely solo, right? So why would we do a job search completely solo?
Yeah. And if that first person you call isn't the right one, don't give up on doing it with somebody. Like, just keep reaching out until you find the person. That's the key. It's going to ebb and flow. You're going to find the person, and then the person's not going to be the right person anymore after maybe 6 months or a year or 2 years, and that's okay. But the key is to just always be on the quest to either find your person or find the tribe, right? Because you'll be able to then, again, not do it alone. And then there's times if you are alone, you've had the workings of with someone else before, that you can at least pull from it in a memory standpoint and work from there until you find the next person, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, you're never alone, either, spiritually or literally, right? So I think that that's the key.
Thank you for being with me today, Lisa. Thank you for covering this topic. We're going to put the link to that wonderful post and video that you wrote about the 3 tips for taking the emotion out of rejection in the comments here. I want to thank everybody for being here. And just a reminder that next week, I'm going to be talking with Nihat Obensienshel about mental health during mental well-being during job search. And he's going to take a look at sort of shifting that deficit mindset to a mindset of abundance and capability. So
can't wait.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone. I didn't get to everybody's comments, but we'll check them out. Have a great week.
Take care, everybody. Thanks, Hannah.